Okay, folks, welcome angle of attack users and GoFlight users. We're going to the second installment of this video, or third, I should say, third installment, and we're going to be talking about that scoundrelly, that's not even a word, but the light switches. The switches that are three positioned and that are not spring loaded to center. And those switches are the pesky retractables, landing lights. I'm going to show you how to program those. Again, I'm going to use my GoFlight interface tool. I'm going to go to device 1 and just make sure I've got the right panel. I do. They're all highlighted. And I'm going to highlight the switch I want blue. And I'm going to start with this switch. And this is a landing light that's retractable. Now, switch event on. I want to go event overhead lights left retract. That's what it's called. Don't think it's retracting the light. It's just that's what the data is called. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If I left click, and I'll show you inside the aircraft what that does. Okay, so we're inside the aircraft, and I'm actually going to left click it. So I'm going to go ahead and click it left. Look what happens. It extends. I'll click it left again, and it drops down to on. In this particular case, it's extending, and now it's going illuminating. That's extended, but off. That's off. All the way up and retracted. So you have retracted, extended, on. Now, that's not a spring-loaded back, so it's a little difficult to do this. So what we're going to do is bypass this and go right to on. Now, how do we do that? I'll show you. So how we're going to do this is by simply doing this. Mouse left times 2 with off reversed. Which is so nice because, again, it's reversed from what the panel wants you to do. And I am programming the light data, and this data is BT MOH. Okay, light switch, light switch, landing light, retractable left side. And my light action is going to be on greater than this position 0, which means when that switch is on, I want the light to illuminate. It tells me the landing light's on. So let's go ahead and try that in the cockpit. Alright, here we are in the cockpit. I'm going to go ahead and throw this on. You can take a look at the panel here. And I'm going to push the left switch down. See, it bypassed the middle, went down twice to on. My light is now on, which is really nice because now I know my landing lights are on, and I've done that for every single one. See, those two are not spring-loaded. The other ones are fixed. They're on or off. They're easy switches to program because it's just on or off. Okay, which is nice. And I'll flip those off as well. And I've programmed my whole panel here just for landing lights. Now, another thing is the strobe and steady. Again, you can program that as well. You think you've got the hang of it now. Down is going to be steady, up is strobe and steady. And I'll show you how to program that here in a minute. Okay, here we go. So I've highlighted the switch. And I'm going to do event switches on. Event overhead lights, position strobe. Okay, now when I throw the switch on, okay, you can see, again, I'm going to do mouse left 2 with off reverse. Same thing. Okay, so I want 2 left clicks. Data is going to be BTMOH, lights switch position, on greater than 0. And what I've done was I've coded on down. And I want that to be the strobe. And then the next switch up, as you can see what happens here. And I'll show you here in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and enter the cockpit and show you what that looks like. Okay, folks, we're in the cockpit, and I want to show you this switch. Right now, it's down. It's on steady. Now I want it to go to strobe, okay? So I'm going to go throw it to quote-unquote off. See, that bypasses off, and it goes right to position, strobe, and steady. Again, this is a 3-position switch. Off, steady. Well, guess what? Now I'm all reversed, so I'm going to have to throw it back. I'm going to right-click the mouse, right, to go off. You can see that right there. And my light's on. because I'm on strobe and steady. And if I push it down, it's steady, and that's where normally it is until we take the runway, and then I just flip it up. Bypass is off, and it goes to strobe and steady. That's how you do that, which is really nice. So again, down in this particular case will be quote-unquote on, and that's steady. If I flip it up, it goes to position, strobe, and steady. And the or off. In this particular case, I'm bypassing that because I'm doing 2 right clicks to the off position. So that's a lot of fun too. So next, I'm going to show you how to actually position or code a rotor switch. I think you guys are getting the hang of this. But the rotor switch is really useful, and one of the things I use a lot is the engine starts, so I don't have to go up over my head and look at where I'm doing it. And I had a big problem in the beginning trying to get this thing programmed, and it took me quite a while to figure it out. And I don't know what I was quite doing wrong, but I'll show you here. We're going to go to the RP48 panel, and we're going to go right there. It says RP48 panel. You see this RP48B or RP48R. Well, which one's which? Click B, I don't know. Click R. Looks like I've got 4 rotaries. And the difference is the R or the 48B is the push buttons underneath the rotaries. So what I want to do is program the rotary first. And there is how many panels? There's 2. Let's figure out which one we're going to do. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I want to do an engine start. So device 0, I'm going to click identify. You see that? I was on the wrong device. That's why we always identify what we're doing. So I'm going to go device 1, identify. That's up here. That's what I want. 4 rotary switches. I'm going to highlight this rotary switch blue. Rotary event is going to be clockwise. What am I going to call this? Well, it's going to be event overhead lights left engine start. Rotary action is called rotate. There is no light underneath it because these are just lights to these push buttons. So that's it. Now I'm going to go into the cockpit and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, here we go. So you can see right here this rotary switch. This is a simple thing. I want to start the engine, flip it over to ground. That's it. It's just that simple. You just flip it over to ground. Good. If I want it off, it's just 1 click to clockwise. Go to continuous. 1 click clockwise. Flight. Same thing. Can't go all the way around. Got to go back the other side. And that is as simple as it gets. I was having such a hard time with them, and I can't remember what I was running into. I think I know what I was running into. It was the programming. The language has to be correct. So the engine starts are just right there, and I think you've got the hang of it. It's you got to kind of scroll down that list to figure out which one is which. Now I've programmed the push buttons as well, and I'm going to show you a push button program here in just a second. So with that successfully done, that rotor switch, we're going to go into the push button event, and what I'm going to do is the RP48. I've got to change tabs, right? RP48 Bravo, which means the bottom of RP48. And that's this row here. You can see how many buttons. It's all disabled, so I go click 01. Is that? Let's identify. Wrong one. Let's go 02 or 01. I'm sorry. Identify. That's the one I want. Now, this first push button is window heat. Well, I hate flipping all the window heats on. So what I'm going to do is just on and off. Again, it's a 3-position switch. However, I'm not going to use it as a 3-position switch. I just want a simple on and off. So what I'm going to do is use one button to program all of the window heat, and you do that by a cluster. I highlight the button. I'm going to come over here. The button event is going to be on, so I push it. It's going to turn it on. Now you can see over here. This is the hard part, is trying to figure out what's what, right? So this is called the event cluster window heat. Mouse left, because if you left click it, turns it on, right? The light data, well, I want the data cluster light window heat. I want the light on when the window heat is on, so I have to put the value as 1. Remember, if it's on, value is always 1. Off is 0. Got it? Pretty simple. It's that easy. It's not that bad. I'll show you what it looks like in the cockpit. Okay, we're staring at the window heat. You can see the window heat is off. Take a look at the panel. There, I'm going to push the button. All 4 on. So nice because it bypasses everything. Notice my light is on because the light on the cockpit is on. So I'll throw the lights off. All 4 switches will come off. Same with probe heat. It's the same thing. That's what I've done here. On, off. Simple. Push buttons are easy because they're just on-off switches. But again, I recommend getting the switches because, well, who wants to push buttons when you can flip switches? We're Boeing drivers. We're not Airbus drivers. And the rest is really up to you on how you want to program this. It's really your world at this point. You can figure out where you want everything. It doesn't have to be what I've done. The seatbelts are a little difficult because I had 2 push buttons. One for on, one for off. So remember that. If you're like, okay, how could I get this off with the switch? Kind of scroll down there and I'll show you kind of how that looks. There's the seatbelt right there. You can kind of see it. There we go. I've programmed the seatbelts to on. There's the 3 positions. So each button I push, see, it doesn't go the opposite direction. I pushed in that same button, I can't do it. So I programmed another button next to it for off. So that's kind of the issues I run into a little bit. But that's pretty much it. I think you guys know how to do it. We've done rotaries, we've done switches, we've done pretty much everything else is good to go. The one thing I do have to talk about, though, that I forgot, okay, is the 166 panels, and that is the Navcom radios. I've run into an issue where this config, where the GoFlight interface tool was talking to 2 separate modules at the same time, and I do not know why. Still to this day, I don't know why. As you can see, I'm going to highlight 1 or 0. It's disabled. What about 1? It's enabled. What about 2? Disabled. Okay? I've got 1 enabled, and that is it. So what I've done is I got really crafty with this one. I said, all right, 2 were talking to each other. Every time I'd spin a switch, both of them would program at the same time. You might not have the same situation, but if you do, this is how you work around this. And there might be a better way. I just don't know of one yet. You want to program it, center button, Bonner center, which is the center button here. It's nav1 radio swap. Input event is on. Input actions, nothing, and the light action is nothing because there is no lights with that. There is a light, but I'm not going to use it. So that's what I've done here. Then what I did was I got creative, and I went to here. And what I did was I went to the GoFlight config tool, and I programmed both of my radios, my comms and my nav2, just like it says it in the setup where you could put call 1 and 2, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But well, I think you guys can get it. Just open the config tool, and you can find it where it says COM 1, and then I think it says toggle COM 1, COM 2. And then I did is I skipped the middle panel. I went to the back end of panel, and I did nav 2 again. Nav 2 toggle nav 1 nav 2. All right, and that's how I got bypassed that. So they both work. They all work. And it's been a real joy to fly. Anyway, if you have any questions, this is the last installment, please let me know. And hopefully your learning curve will be much more or less than mine was. But this wasn't too bad. It took me about 2.5, 3 days to really figure it out and get it done. So even with the learning curve, it's not that steep. But I hope it helped you. And again, comments are welcome. And enjoy your GoFlight machine. They work great. And until next time, throttle on.